Well, glory be and mercy me. We've done it yet again. Here we are, daily walk around the graveyard today. So the big news, finally a day where we're not talking about the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party is getting propped up in a tentative agreement between the Liberals and the New Democratic Party under Jagmeet Singh. Everyone, of course, in the NDP side of the conversation is leaping for joy. Oh, we're gonna get something out of Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau has been in power for about a decade now. During this time, we've learned that he likes to cosplay as a minority, right? He has a penchant for saying that he wants to do things and then doing nothing of the sort. I guess we've been so trained to expect absolutely nothing out of these liberals that when we actually get into a position where we can get literally anything at all, we consider it a victory. Just to remind people where Canada is at, 60% of the populace is saying that it is struggling to pay bills. People are beginning to fall behind. Inflation is jacking prices all over the place. Housing prices have soared and rents have gone along with them. People literally cannot pay the bills. One of the only tools that the Bank of Canada is saying that it has at its disposal in order to combat this absurdist inflation going on is to raise interest rates, which 30% of Canadians say will bankrupt them immediately. We are in a massive emergency. Huge segments of the population are facing literal homelessness, literal poverty, are having to choose between food and electricity, food and shelter, and this in one of the richest countries on the planet. And what is the NDP trading away in order to continue propping up this Liberal government? Well, you might be able to go get your teeth cleaned. You know, if you need to get some pills, they'll make sure that you can get that at a nice reduced rate. So what that means is that until 2025, we are going to continue having this absurdist Liberal Party who has done less than Stephen Harper's administration with the power that they have capitulated utterly to corporate power, the fossil fuel industry, all while bullshitting us that they actually care about any of these issues whatsoever. And now, after a decade of this total fucking nonsense, we're trading it all away for a teeth cleaning. This is where we are at here in Canada. This absolutely pathetic, absurdist version of a country, a parody of a country. I keep saying that we're like a Rick and Morty episode, where Rick and Morty would show up at a planet and they would hear what's going on in our country and they would think, yeah, no, this is too absurd. This isn't a thing that could actually be real. So we'll just put it in a fantasy adventure show so people can laugh at how silly and stupid it actually is. We're so weak. The NDP have become positioned as controlled opposition by the capitalist class. I call them orange liberals. That the Overton window is shifted so far to the right that the liberals are now conservatives, right? The conservatives are off on the weeds, saying absolutely crazed nightmare shit, like they would support troops going into Ukraine and all this kind of crazed bullshit. It's plunging us into World War III. 30% of the populace wants to go along with that. Seems reasonable. And so in this narrative, the NDP are now positioned to be the liberals, which means that there is no left any longer in Canada. There's just people on the right. There's just the capitalists. No one's actually interested in meaningfully confronting the capitalist death cult. No one's interested in meaningfully looking and saying, hey, What's with all the homelessness? What's with all the poverty? What's with all of the desperation that's going on in the society? No, we'll be sure that while you're sleeping in that tent in the park, while we assault you with police the way that we do, that at least you'll be able to go get a teeth cleaning, right? At least you'll be able to go get that tooth replaced after a cop beats it right out of your face with a baton, right? And this is what's shamefully embarrassing. This is the most shamefully embarrassing part of this for the NDP. It is cheaper to provide people housing. It is cheaper to say to the public and say to the populace, hey, you don't have a place to live? Well, we're going to provide it for you. And it actually saves us money doing that for the exact reasons that you think. Shelters aren't free. Food banks aren't free, right? Emergency services aren't free. These institutions that we erected to temporarily deal with homelessness are very expensive to maintain. The food banks of Canada have pointed this out. Countries have done study after study after study and have shown over and over and over again, just giving people homes, just giving people access to these things is cheaper, and we refuse to do it. We trade that away for a teeth cleaning. We trade that away so that we can get cheaper access to pharmaceutical drugs. And I'm not trying to say these things aren't important, but I am trying to say that it's an awful lot like throwing a stick at a person who's drowning in the ocean and saying, just grab onto that stick. It'll help you out. You won't drown after all. Our politicians are not rising to the occasion. And why? Because they're part of the problem. The plan by the capitalist death cult, the plan was to maximize wealth extraction, was to make it so that you are poor and desperate and they are living in a private fantasy world surrounded by toys and yes men. That's the plan, and it's going off without a hitch. And while it's happening right around you, and while your friends and your families and your coworkers are thrown into the streets and are thrown into desperation and are thrown into poverty, we're all supposed to give a big rah-rah cheer. Why? Because we're getting some teeth cleaned today, boys. We're so weak. We're so incapable of understanding that the system of governance that exists with our consent and our consent alone. And enormous sections of the populace will actually complain that anyone will get even this small, meager, what they will call a handout. A society that refuses to provide shelter and food for its citizens is no society at all. You don't need to pay attention to their laws. You don't need to pay attention to their rules. They have abandoned us, and it's becoming a bit like let them eat cake. Sure, go get your teeth cleaned. Go get that cavity filled. Go sleep in a tent in the park. Say hi to the cop when he beats you over the head. This is the world that we're creating, and it's an absurdity. It's an absurdity wrapped in a delusion. And forgive me if I'm not going to cheer along as these fake liberals, these orange liberals, throw crumbs at us while we drown in a pool they keep filling, while they float on top of it in yachts that are so big they need to dismantle bridges to get them through canals. When I was growing up, I thought that we were strong. I thought that we were a strong people. I thought that we actually cared about one another. We've fallen so far, so fast. We're so weak and so incapable of raising our voice and actually demanding better of our political class that this whole thing is going to come careening down around us. And that's assuming they make good on the promise, which, when have these liberals ever made good on their promises? Can anyone point out the time? Oh, we got the legal weed. Yeah, that plant, right? More and more, I definitely see that we are the people who ban a plant while smoking another plant. I wish we were better. I wish we actually cared about the disabled and the elderly that we're abandoning to these hellhole long-term care homes in the parks so that we can assault them. I wish we were better than this, but we're not. That's the hard truth of it. We're simply not. And all that's left for the people that understand it, who refuse to go down silently, who refuse to allow this society to just chew them up and spit them out without complaint. All that's left for us is to gather en masse and surround the halls of power, to redraw our constitution so these psychopaths can never play these petty politic games ever again. A society that does not provide food and shelter for its people is no society at all. This is the end of this one, guys. If you've made it here and you like what you're hearing, like, share, subscribe. Won't be long until I'm scrubbed. That's what they're doing these days. Scrubbing leftists, scrubbing all the information, right? They're not even going to give us a seat at the table much longer. So, I got a Patreon down below. Think about donating, right? Think about getting into the Discord. Think about joining the community, right? So that when they take me off YouTube, you'll actually have someone to connect with who will actually tell you what the hell is going on in this country. Because God knows the media isn't, right? And God knows the politicians aren't going to do anything about it as this whole thing comes collapsing down around us. Always remember, guys, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the pathetic hope that you'll never realize it, and you'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel, revolt, repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.